hoping to do some sand skiing here. We're on Highway 50 and there's that mountain right here where we can see it plain as can be. Now it's a matter of turning in and seeing if we can find a place to ski down that sand without some ATV or off-highway vehicle running us over. There's Sand Mountain that we can see from the highway. We're about to turn off and see if we can do some sand skiing there.
Once we reached the turnoff to the Sand Mountain Recreation area, we could see that there was still quite a ways to go before we reached the sand dunes, and the road in had many trenches in it that were really deep, like speed bumps, only trenches, and that you had to take really slow or you'd risk bottoming out.
Be safe and legal.
The Sand Mountain area is also home to a desert study area and an historic Pony Express station. This is the view from the entrance station at Sand Mountain. As you can see, the dunes here are really tall, and when we visited, there were a lot of people camped here. Since we were here for some sand skiing, a non-motorized activity, I guess we could be here for about an hour, which is about what we were planning to do anyway. While we were getting oriented with the place, we did spend a little bit of time watching the motorized vehicles run up and down the dunes. There were four-wheelers and motorcycles. Eventually, we stopped about as far in as we could drive before it got too sandy. Got the skis out, put on a food-grade lubricant to increase glide, strapped on the boots, clamped on the skis, and headed up the nearest slope. The interesting thing about going up sand dunes with skis on is that because it spreads your weight out more, you tend to backslide less. About halfway up the sand dunes, I stopped and looked around to see just how big an area we were skiing in. And while I was climbing, there were a couple of motorized vehicle enthusiasts heading up the dunes. Eventually, the slope got pretty steep and I was starting to backslide, and I was thinking I'd need a herringbone, which is a cross-country skiing technique for going up hills, but instead I decided that was far enough and it was time to do my first run. And of course, having skis on your feet also makes it a lot faster and a lot easier to come down the sand dunes when you're ready to come back down. Here's what my first run down the sand dunes looked like from my GoPro camera. I did take a fall, but because it's sand, it was nice and soft and no harm done.
Wipe out.
Since there isn't a whole lot of glide to sand, then once the slope moderates, the sand can get kind of sticky under your feet, under your skis. And here's Rick's shot of me going down the sand dunes for my first run. Sand Mountain, Nevada. Then it was time to start climbing back up the sand for my second run.
That was a good run. Good run. Okay.
And here's what my second run looked like from my GoPro camera.
That was a good run. Good run.
Switching footwear so Rick can get a shot at sand skiing. I've skied down dunes with skis that have the New Nordic Norm or NNN bindings on them, and what I discovered is that the sand tends to clog up the mechanism, so it makes it really hard to unhook your boots out of the skis once you're done sand skiing. So the skis I decided to make my dedicated sand skiers, I put the old style bindings on because it's a much simpler mechanism. It just clamps onto the 3-pin boot and releases much easier and doesn't get clogged up with sand like the NNNs do. Okay. Here's Rick's, he says, second attempt at sand skiing.
What?
I'm just announcing it. Rick's second attempt at sand skiing. We are rolling. By this time, our hour of non-motorized recreation here was probably up, so we headed on back to the car.